Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Welcome to Techmap. You went very quietly, just on your own accord there. It was very nice. I didn't have to shout to get your attention. My name's Andy Bargery, for those that don't know me, and whoa, thank you, Bernie Mitchell. He's paid very highly to do that. And what we're discussing this evening is how to overcome content shock. So hopefully everyone here has an interest in content marketing. And we have three lovely speakers here who are going to give you their wisdom, some advice, some thoughts, some recommendations, and some examples of how to overcome content shock. But before we get to that, let's just do a few housekeeping notes. If you are here, you are required to tweet about the fact you're here, please. #Techmap. Good, at the back. Excellent. Someone's tweeting right now. Also, please ask questions. This is going to be better if you ask questions. So store them up, let our three speakers say their piece, and then ask your questions after that. And hopefully we can make this really interactive and engaging. There's not a huge number of us here this evening, so let's make sure that if you have got a question, raise your hand and ask it. Let's not be shy today. And the last piece of housekeeping is meet your fellow tech mappers. Please, before you leave, make sure you meet 3 people you haven't spoken to before, at least, which is probably half of the room, so it shouldn't be too hard. Work the crowd, guys. Let's make this a really nice interactive engagement. Oh, they really? Return on investment already, Bernie. Isn't that beautiful? Is it? Well, that's just Bernie. So, content shock. What is content shock? Why are we here? Content shock was a term coined by Mark Schaefer, a blogger, a marketeer, a consultant over in the US, early on in 2014. And the basic idea is that as we're all producing so much more content, it becomes harder for our content to cut through, to reach our audiences, to make an impact. And so we're spending more time and more money producing more content, which also isn't necessarily reaching our target audiences. And so it becomes more and more difficult and more challenging for us to actually get a return on investment from the spend that we're putting into content marketing. And so what we're looking at today is, well, we're not going to stop content marketing. There's a really good post, I think it was from John today, comparing about the Mexico. Yeah, comparing the fact that Dick Fosbury invented the Fosbury flop even, and he revolutionized how people did the high jump, and then everyone else caught up, so we wanted to get better at how we were using the Fosbury flop rather than just stop doing the Fosbury flop. And I think content marketing is exactly the same. It really is a case of everyone has caught up with those early adopters, and now it's about what can we do as marketeers to actually overcome that issue of content shock. So who are our 3 speakers? I'm going to start over here with Emily Turner, who is a content strategist, consultant, freelancer, gun for hire, all of those things, I think, at some point. She currently works for Virgin Unite, but has also worked for the NHS, Johnson & Johnson, and the Royal Household, no less. So Emily's going to go first. Then we have Doug Kessler at the far end of the panel there. Doug is the director and co-founder of Velocity Partners, a B2B marketing company or agency, who is more than happy to talk about content marketing, I think. And then finally, Gareth Case, who's the global marketing director for Exchanging, a financial services technology company. Is that
close enough?
Close enough. Good, excellent. And Gareth is going to give us a bit of an example of the tech he's using to actually to cut through to get ROI. And on that note, I'll hand over to Emily.
So I thought it would be really useful when talking about content shock to talk about where we've come from, or selfishly where I've come from. So in the past, in 1995, I got my first Mac and I started talking to Americans on the other side of the planet on eWorld, in content forums. And this is when I really started thinking, this could actually be what I want to do for a career back then, before social media. And that's what I did. I joined an agency and we started working on intranets, CD-ROMs, remember them? Really bad brochure websites. And in around 2000, I got my first sort of major project with the Department of Work and Pensions. They were trying to build engagement with people on the ground who were delivering projects that were funded by the European Social Fund. There they were, sitting in their ivory tower, really far away from what was happening on the ground. So we launched an e-newsletter and a website which had a listening ear icon with an email address. So people could email in their questions and they would get a really swift reply. I mean, it sounds hilarious now, but I mean, this was groundbreaking. And it actually started to influence what we'd put in the newsletter and how we would design the content on the website based on what would come through to that mailbox. And this was the first time that government was actually having direct feedback like this with the audience on the ground. So I kind of think now we're in this sort of revolution phase where we're going through different phases of creation of content. So I don't know how many people here have created pieces of content with maybe 25 plus people involved in it, or maybe 10 people or organisations involved in approval processes. Then you publish it and you're like, oh, thank God for that, it's done. Don't have to think about it anymore. And now we're moving to this kind of different cycle where we publish fast without approvals and we change it based on the feedback that we get direct from the users. And this is constantly iterating and is an evolution all the time. Content is never finished, websites are never done, we don't have 3-year budget cycles, this is it forever. We work to what the users tell us. And actually, one of the organisations that are doing this really well is the Government Digital Service, the GDS, who are digital by default. They believe perfection is futile. They publish fast, they design services quickly, they have a lab inside their offices where they bring users in and then they test it and they change all the time. And this is having a massive influence outside of the public sector, even in the private sector, and it's really changing how things are being done. But it's our job as professionals to educate our clients. And clients are having a really hard time going from their safe traditional space where they're in control of their reputation to working in this way. And another thing that I've seen that's really changing is how much information we have about the people we're trying to reach. Back in the old days, 2000, not that far away, data was really expensive. We just did what we wanted based on our gut feeling and our assumption. Clients didn't want to pay for market research. It involved really expensive telephone marketing and face-to-face interviews. So we just did what we wanted. But now data really is the cornerstone of everything that we do. And it's actually quite overwhelming. And we get really far away from the users we're trying to reach. They're just a bunch of statistics, numbers, data. And what we need to do is build really strong personas of who we're trying to reach, who they are, how they access content, how they pay for stuff. It's not just for digital development. It's really essential for content marketing too. So personas are very important for everything that we do. And in fact, organisations like Tesco, probably not a great example since they're losing a lot of money at the moment, but Tesco and Lush have had to break out of their corporate organisations and set up digital agencies in London to get away from the mindset where they have mini teams across each part of the business with a customer insights, user experience guy, a content strategist, a developer, working in mini teams to try and get as close to the user as they can with customer insights. And we've also seen a massive shift in distribution. So social media is really, really important. Before, I used to stuff envelopes with press releases and send them out and have a massive post office bill. And, we laugh, but I'm only talking about 2000. And now social media has revolutionised everything that we do. But as we were talking earlier, it doesn't always drive sales. And what we're seeing is a massive shift in control. So social media platforms were free. Now they're not. They turn off functions that we love. They introduce functions that we hate. We're constantly on the hamster wheel of trying to keep up with what's going on. And clients are now used to paying for online ads, but now they're like, what? We have to have like a digital social media spend as well. And it's a really hard environment for them to understand. And one of the big problems that I find is clients say, yeah, but we only want to reach our core audience on social. But that's not how social media works. It's about spreading your net as far wide as you can on social media. So you climb up this pyramid. So all the people who've opted in on email and direct marketing, then you're reinforcing with reviews that earned media till you get to your happy user at the top. Just think about ALS and the Ice Bucket Challenge. How many people who did that challenge actually followed ALS on Twitter or actually knew what it was? Very few. And actually very few donated. And yet millions of people took part in this global movement. And that is the power of critical mass. And what we're seeing is entrepreneurs, such as Social Chain in the UK, have really cottoned on to this critical mass. So they've created comedy and parody Twitter accounts. They can make a hashtag go viral just through the sheer critical mass of their network. And one of the other problems that I see with clients, there's a lot of, not necessarily moaning about clients, but these are the things we have to deal with, is they come like, we want to put this content out there. And you're like, why? Why are you putting that out there? What value has it to anybody? Why would anyone want to share that? So the New York Times came up with these personas of sharing, which are up here on the slide. And you'll see that money doesn't really feature in that. So it goes much deeper than that. So share this to win that is a pretty low denominator for someone to get involved. And what we're seeing is that corporate social responsibility and people getting involved with your brand are much more important. And when I worked at the SNCF in 2012, I was tasked with increasing Interrail sales with a budget of £2,000 on social media. One of the things I did was create a magical mystery tour with a Guardian journalist where all the fans on the Facebook page, they voted for the destinations they wanted the journalist to go to. This sounds like, yeah, we do this all the time, but at the time Wildfire was only being used as a sort of engagement platform within Facebook. And because they were so involved, they followed the journey and the engagement was huge, and Interrail ticket sales went up by 98% at the end of the campaign. And you can never underestimate the power of a badge or a title within a community around your brand. So One Direction, Justin Bieber, someone's got to mention their name. So One Direction didn't have any music for the first year. Yeah, we were safe after X Factor. And they split their master disc up and they buried it on the internet, and they got their fan base to find it, put it together. So when they actually had music, they had a fan base ready to buy it. And Justin Bieber's pretty cool as well. So he's got an app called Farlow, where his community earn coins based on how much engagement they take part in. And this gives them elevated sort of kudos within the community, and they can swap the money for money can't buy experiences. And that's what you kind of have to work for your brand. So the biggest change I've seen in the last 2 years is that they no longer work as a silo, but in collaboration with lots of other disciplines. And one of the things I've learned is to let go of bad ideas. And in fact, if you can't recognise a bad idea and you end up in a dead end, you're actually a hindrance to a project. It's really hard to let go of bad ideas because they're your ideas, and as humans we're programmed to think that our ideas are really good. So one of the things I've really learned is to create better outcomes. You really have to listen as closely as you can to as many disciplines as you can. And this is why we sort of celebrate the generalist. Somebody said, oh, write out what you do. And you're like, well, I don't actually do one thing. I do a little of a lot of stuff. And this is what's really important, I think, for Content Shock. A little bit of knowledge goes a long way, and it makes you more empathetic, more collaborative, and that's what you really need to do. Become a lifelong learner, and that's how you can survive Content Shock. That's it.
Oh, sorry, Doug, it's you next. Yeah.
Thanks. Hello. That's me. And I'm going to talk about home run content in the age of content shock. If I can do that in roughly 10 minutes. I timed it in the car over. It was way longer, so I'm going to talk fast. Luckily, Andy already talked about content shock. You know what it is. It's Mark Schaefer saying the sky is falling, and that content marketing is not a sustainable strategy anymore. Ironically, that piece of content, that blog post that he put out, was his best piece of content, most successful in a long time. So content marketing isn't dead yet. And one of the reasons it went viral is it had a chart in it. You got to have a chart. And this chart, and it looked really scientific, what was exciting about it is lines crossed. And if you're going to make excitement out of a chart, the lines have to cross. That says that the world is changing. And when we pass the crossing point, the world's in a different place. So he had amount of content over time. Actually, I used this right from his blog. It turns out he mislabeled the axes. It's time on the bottom, amount of content along the side. The blue line is, no, the red line is our ability to consume. So the amount of content we can all consume as a species is going up because of technology, access to it, stuff like that. But not nearly as fast as the blue line, which is that content production line. That's the hockey stick. That's going exponential. And when they cross some horrible time in the near future, that's that area of content shock when content production is no longer economic. It doesn't make sense anymore. Mark didn't say what you do instead of content marketing, but he did say the sky's falling, it's not going to work anymore. What he didn't say is when in the future. What point? Is it next year? Is it in 100 years? When is that going to happen? So I did the maths. I think it happened in 1492. In 1455, Gutenberg came out printing. You know, that first, his 42-line Bible, the famous Gutenberg Bible, was 1455. Within about 40, 45 years, printing was all over Europe. Big deal, a lot of books in print. And by my calculations, which are really just finger in the air, at about 1490, somewhere before 1500, the amount of printed books out there exceeded any one reader's ability to read them all. So content shock we've been living with for 450 years or something. It's not a new thing. And for me, the things that he was missing, the things he didn't think about, three big things. And I'm saying missing. I think he knew exactly what he was doing and actually, hit his target. So I don't think he's a very smart guy. But three things that content shock doesn't take into account. One is granularity. There isn't a content ocean that we all compete in. There's an almost infinite number of content puddles that we compete in. If someone just says, ooh, I need content, like I need food, then I compete with Justin Bieber. I compete with every other piece, BuzzFeed. My business-to-business marketing stuff is competing with BuzzFeed in that conception of the world. But that really isn't how the world works. The supply chain manager in the automotive paint company who's looking into a procurement solution has granular content needs, not just content needs. So he's looking for something very specific. And when he's doing that, the competition in that puddle is a lot smaller. It's not to say that it isn't still fierce and you don't have to be good, but you're not really competing with Justin Bieber in that market. So the more granular the world becomes, the less content shock becomes really the issue. The second thing I think it leaves out is the idea that the world changes. So if the world didn't change, if we weren't in a really dynamic place and every market wasn't dynamic, then you could kind of get saturated and be done with content. We did it. We talked about the world and life and our market, and we're done now. But clearly, the world is constantly changing in huge ways, and we need content to interpret that change for us and show how it's relevant to us. So there will always be this vacuum of need for new content. And the last is quality. Again, I think the post, like a lot of the early content marketing dogma, treats content like this colorless, odorless fluid that you pump into your marketing automation machine and you pump out to your audiences as if it's all just one big undifferentiated mass, And clearly that's not the case. Some content really, really resonates with us and some doesn't at all. I think that's a big difference. And just to call them both content and say they're equal is simply not true. There's content and there's capital C content. For me, home run content, stuff that really jumps out and resonates with target audiences, is the stuff that makes content marketing work. So just doing content marketing may not confer advantage anymore. John Bottom's post about the Fosbury flop was saying Fosbury had an advantage. He was the first guy that did it this way. And after a year or two, when everyone was doing it, it wasn't an advantage anymore. It didn't mean it wasn't still the best way to jump. It just meant it wasn't conferring advantage. Content is that way. You do it right, hit home runs, and you're still getting advantages from it. So this is my version of, the lines don't cross, but this is my scientific chart called Goodies Over Time. Goodies is anything you like to measure, any metric at all. It can be shares or likes or views or whatever. and time is time. The gray line is a typical content marketing program. You get a little spike every time you publish a piece, then the world settles back down and the goodies are gone, and then more goodies next time you publish. And the gray line is trending up a little bit. It doesn't look it there, but it's slightly trending up. So good things are happening. The red line is a program with home runs in it. And we've looked at our own entire content marketing program for Velocity and for our clients. And this is really how it works. You take the home runs out, and we have an okay program. But a couple home runs change everything. And one thing, they spike higher. You know, when they spike higher. They're really, really resonating. And so the goodies really come rolling in. But when they settle down after the spike, it's at a significantly higher level than before the spike. And you do that again with another home run, another home run. And what you've done really is create a great content brand. It's a brand people come back to because they like the stuff you put out. And if you're true to that, you're building a proper audience. And that's where content marketing kicks in. I think Content Shock, the people doing the gray line business, are at the most risk. If all your content is all about utility and worthy stuff, you're at the most risk from the idea of all the noise that's out there. But if you're in the home run business, and I think actually we all need to be in the home run business, then it really is less of an issue. It's about how we're going to hit these home runs. 3 things about how to hit them. The first for me is confidence. That confident content is what wins. We did a piece called The Other C Word, What Makes Great Content Marketing Great. It's on SlideShare. And what we did is look at all great content we could look at and try to find the common things. We thought we'd find 3 or 4, but it was a very diverse bunch of stuff. There was funny stuff and serious stuff and moving stuff and worthy and hardworking stuff. And the only thing we found that was in common in all of the great content, the most successful content, and the stuff we rated the most, was confidence. It was content that looked you in the eye as a reader and said, I'm good at what I do, I know what I'm doing, and I'm good at telling this story, so you're going to enjoy the ride with me. We're going, and I'm going to take you by the hand. I'm not going to let go until we arrive together. That's what great content does. Home run content does that. Why confidence is so important? 4 big things. Clearly, it just attracts. I mean, confident people, as long as they're not arrogant, attract. They project success. They're enjoying what they're doing. There's just a good vibe around a confident piece of content. Second, it signals expertise and experience. So where does confidence come from? It comes from knowing what the hell you're doing. And people who don't have that are a bit jittery. So it signals this important thing, that the sender of this content is someone I should listen to. Third, it signals honesty, which is a little bit weird. It surprises me to think of it this way, but when you do think of it, shifty people with something to hide, can't be confident, you know. And confident people actually have nothing to hide. They open kimono because they know what they're doing and they're happy. They know they're going to give you value. So there's an honesty signal that goes on. And the fourth one, maybe it should be the first one, is it grabs attention because so much content out there, certainly in the B2B world where I live, is not confident. It lacks the courage of its convictions. It has no mojo at all. And so if you've got some, you jump right out. You've got attention. That sounds like a nice fringe benefit, attention, but actually it's the number one thing. If you don't get attention, none of the other goodies can possibly follow. You can't achieve any of your other goals until you get someone's attention. So pretty big reasons to invest in confident content and to start to work out what that looks like for you guys. Second is staying in your sweet spot. I think overlapping circles are the theme tonight. That's simply stuff you know most about where it intersects with stuff prospects care most about. That's your sweet spot. And all the best content comes from your sweet spot or very, very near it. I think what happened is we were all in the blue zone in old marketing, traditional marketing. We knew about our products. We knew about that stuff. We could talk till the cows came home about that stuff. Then we heard about this thing called content marketing. Wow, write about what your prospect cares about. That's cool. And people ran from one extreme to the other. They ran right through their sweet spot into, wow, they care about paint coatings. I'll read all about paint coatings. But you don't know anything about paint coatings. That's not your thing. So they've left, ran right through their sweet spot. The sweet spot is they care about it, the prospects, and they look to you as an authority in that area. You have some credibility or a unique take on that topic. That's the sweet spot. I think all really good content, the kind that resists content shock, comes from that spot. And the third one is emotion, which is a weird one for a B2B marketer. I went into B2B to get away from what I thought was emotional manipulation. Like I was on an account at Ogilvy. Be a good mother, buy my fabric softener was essentially the strategy. And I felt icky about that. I just thought manipulating women in a very vulnerable thing for this stupid, sticky product didn't feel right. And I went into B2B to convince people to do stuff, right? To look them in the eye and make a case. And it was all rational. And then took too long in my career, but more recently I started realizing actually head times heart is home run is really what the formula is. It's, yes, you want to make someone think something, but if you can also make someone feel something, you're really onto a piece of home run content. We've seen this with our most successful stuff for our own agency or clients. And the key to the formula is the multiplication sign. So if either are zero, you end up with nothing really. You could have an unbelievably great argument buried in a white paper and no one's going to see it. You can have this incredible, attention-grabbing piece of attitude, but there's no story there, there's no there. It's not going to help you either. But again, make them think and make them feel at the same time, and I think that's where home runs come from. For us, one of our biggest pieces was this content marketing strategy checklist, which is just a hard-working piece. It's got a little bit of attitude in it, but it's not a ton of heart. It's just useful. And it's not to say that we shouldn't have done it. I'm proud of it. It's a good piece. It's still evergreen for us. A lot of people come for it. But our home runs were the things that came from the heart. So the crap deck that I'm now forever associated with, I'm the crap guy. If I'd thought about it, I would have renamed it back then. But that's broken 1 million views now. 1 million views for us is a big, big thing in B2B. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you there. I'll call that an ovation. But, and... All right, cool. It was translated. But that one was like an impassioned plea. It's kind of the content shock idea way back then was I was saying, what happens when everyone's doing the Fosbury flop? This isn't going to work anymore. And it was really from the heart. It was my biggest fear as a content marketer, and I was packaging that up with a bit of, energy. And the other one was even more personal, more heart, almost all heart, which is this slideshare trying to answer the question, how could I have invested so much of my career in this thing called B2B marketing? My friends do glamorous things or they do meaningful things working for amazing charities, and I'm doing the supply chain management conference in Scunthorpe, and something has gone wrong. And in trying to answer it, I kind of dug deep. What makes this meaningful for me? And then it felt too gushy and too soft and sticky, so I sat on it for a year. And finally, I saw some other brands doing cool things with their hearts out there, like Moz does and HubSpot sometimes, and thought, fuck it, I'll publish it. And it really resonated with people. I mean, there are people who really came forward in a nice way. Not as many views, but still it clearly touched some people, which is cool for me, because I was out there. At that point, I felt quite exposed. So our two of our biggest home runs came really from this head times heart combination. So that, to me, in an age of content shock, which again is the age we've pretty much always lived in, is 3 of the big tips I would say is content with confidence. Just inject it and start by saying we're going to do a confident piece on this topic. Second, stay in your sweet spot. Stay where you have an authority to write about the things people care about. And third, try to harness some emotion. What is, for Salesforce, we do a lot on what does customer service or sales look like. Now we're exploring what does it feel like? What does it feel like to give great customer service or to give terrible customer service? And that's actually quite a fertile ground for us, and even though it's a B2B world. So those are, for me, the big tips, and thanks a lot.
Nice.
Thank you.
Last but by no means least, we have Gareth. He's just going to swap over the laptop.
Just while I'm setting up, can I get a show of hands for those agency side? Work within an agency, and those client side? Anyone else that doesn't sit within either of those two? What do you do?
Freelance.
Freelance? Yeah? Great stuff. Let me just fire this up. So Andy's asked me to come and do a case study today. Hopefully I'm going to do it on a couple of things. The first part of the presentation is all around how we go about creating content at Exchanging. For those that don't know, Exchanging is a global technology business, mainly in the outsourcing space. We've got around 8,000 employees in 38 countries. I head up a team of 38 marketing people there. And in terms of how we approach content, we devised a strategy, if you like, that I refer to as 4D marketing, and we call it the 4D approach. And basically, the four areas we look at when we're creating content is firstly to come up with something original. Right? And I think the two guys spoke about this earlier in their presentations. It's really, really key to get something that's a little bit different to what's out there at the moment. The second dimension we look at is vertical market. And I've been doing vertical marketing now for 15 or 16 years within the roles that I've been in, but very few people do it well, and hopefully I'm going to show a little bit about that in just a second. The next one is then job function, and the final one is content type. And if we, Exchanging, we typically come up with a good piece of content. Let's assume it's our company overview or something around a specific product or service. We can then address maybe 7 or 8 different vertical markets and then 7 or 8 different job functions, influencers throughout the buying cycles. Everything from, a junior manager within the department that we're trying to sell into right up to the CEO. And then in terms of content type, which we'll explore in a bit more detail, there's maybe 9 or 10 different types of content that we can produce. So if you take that original piece of content and you multiply those numbers up, there's potentially 640 pieces of unique content you can produce from one single source. And that's why it's important to get that first bit absolutely right. So in terms of where the journey starts with the original content, we've adopted another methodology within Exchanging called the Solution Accelerator approach. And this is basically run by the product marketing team that also sit beneath me. And what these guys do is go out to analysts and they make sure that the propositions that we're taking to market are fit for purpose. We do some research in terms of our customers and prospects and ask them for what they want. We then look at the pricing models internally to make sure that what we're going to sell is profitable and is it deliverable. And are our customers going to be interested in hearing about this? The key thing there for me is that we research and we know our market. It's absolutely vital that we understand both the needs and the challenges of our customers before we start putting together a new solution, which then obviously leads into a content production strategy. It's key to create something that's compelling, and then the content journey after the original piece really does begin. So the first part is obviously the vertical market side, which I touched on just a second ago. These guys speak a different language. If we go into a bank, and we're talking to the CEO, should our message around a specific product or service be the same as that to a CEO or a CTO in a local authority? Absolutely not. CFOs have got challenges around, say, cost management, whereas a CEO wants to make his business more efficient, or a COO is looking more around the operational efficiency of an organisation. If we take the standard generic company overview, which I'm sure all of you have got within your business, it starts to get diluted, and it gets diluted really, really quickly. They also face very different challenges, and I put it to you guys to create content that helps meet their challenges, not only just understand them. And it's been around for years, as I said, but I see very, very few companies getting the vertical bit right. The little quote at the bottom there, putting a picture of a hospital on the front of a presentation doesn't make it fit for healthcare. Right? It's about understanding the needs of the healthcare organisations that we're selling to. In terms of job function, personas, we touched on that earlier as well. They're important, right? We do a lot of work around personas. We do a lot of work around researching our customers and our prospects and understanding, what drives different people around content specifically. Different job functions have got different needs, which I mentioned just a second ago, but they've also got different preferences in terms of how they consume content. We're seeing already that white papers are going down really well with our technical audience and with our financial audience. They like the detail. Whereas our videos, our animations, and our shorter bursts of quick information are going down better with the rest of the C-suite, specifically the CEOs. That's because typically they've got a shorter attention span and they've got less time to consume this sort of information. So ask yourself this, would the same piece of content work for both a CEO of a bank and a CTO of a local authority? And would they both be equally receptive to the same content types? And then the final one is content type. So we've got the obvious ones: brochures, presentations, blogs, white papers, newsletters, case studies, animations. We produce all of these things at Exchanging. And the products I'm about to show you in a minute we've taken on, which will hopefully revolutionise the way we take our content to market, is called Turtle. Hence the reason this diagram I've drawn for our simple sales guys at Exchanging to understand is in the shape of a turtle. But essentially what we do is we take our corporate positioning at the very top. We then feed that then down into our four main sectors, which are technology, Zuba, which is our insurance software division, procurement outsourcing business, and also our business processing business. And then within each of those, we've got a suite of products. So we've got application services, engineering services, education platforms under our tech business. So there's more content that needs to be produced there, and the message gets more and more granular the further you go down. We then create the things I mentioned earlier, so blogs and white papers and presentations and brochures. And then we've got the vertical spin on the right-hand side and the job function on the left-hand side. The only reason we've got those two were to give my turtle feet. I'm going to be honest with you. But the idea now is that a sales guy can come to the marketing team and say, right, I want something with some corporate positioning in our procurement business, on our tail spend management, and I want a presentation and a case study for the insurance sector for a CTO. And we've now got the tools, the content in place where we can pull this stuff together really quickly for them. So that's it in terms of the 4 dimensions. And then along came a turtle, quite an ugly one as well, if you don't mind me saying. So what is it? It's a digital brand publishing tool. I see this as a PowerPoint and PDF killer. I sat on a panel at Adweek Europe last week in between Adobe to my left and Microsoft to my right and said exactly that, which was a brave move because they were both gunning for me afterwards. For me, it bridges the gap between what we've had in the past as traditional content and online, where in an online world it's rich with analytics. You know, Google Analytics I've been using for 15 or so years now. Yes, it's evolved, but there's always been the analytics side of any online activity. Whereas you produce a PDF or a brochure or you give some collateral away at a stand, at an exhibition, and you've no idea what happens to that afterwards. You know, sales guys spend hours putting responses to RFPs and proposals together for our prospects. They send them in, they don't even know if they've opened them, let alone if they've read them and what they've read and how they've engaged with that and what they've answered in terms of the questions embedded within it, which I'll show you in just a sec. This tool is really designed to enhance not only the customer engagement but also the reading experience, and we're seeing that engagement levels have soared since we took this tool on. One of the key benefits is it requires no design experience. It's got some polling functionality. It's fully responsive, so on any tablet or mobile device you get just as good experience as you would on a laptop or a PC. And there's analytics to sit off the back of it as well. In terms of what we've done with it at exchanging, we've currently got more than 120 pieces of collateral built in this platform. There's another 200 in the pipeline, and the demand is growing from the sales team as they're using it and seeing the engagement they're getting from their prospects. We've engaged content engagement massively, and I'll show you some analytics in a minute. Customer insight, we're now getting anywhere between 10% of our prospects actively answering questions to some of the challenges that we're putting out there for them. We've improved email click-through rates from 8% to 32% in the first month we took this tool on, and again I'll show you how we did that. And we've integrated it as well with our CRM and our marketing automation platform, which is really key in terms of completing the loop there. In terms of an example, this is a brochure which was a 1,500 word, 8-page PDF previously. We've now turned it into a slightly better looking online brochure tool here. Again, we ask our customers what challenges they faced. And if you've answered the question previously, you can see the answers, the aggregated answers for all the people that are out there. Again, I can either agree or disagree with this statement up here, click see results, and I'll get a live view as to all the audience that have answered that question. It's got some built-in shared social sharing functionality as well. It's got the ability to go full screen and also a menu system where I can skip to any part of the presentation I want. If we then look at a specific area, one of our products and services here, we can embed images. So again, I've just recycled some content out of an existing infographic. In fact, these infographics are sort of so long and so wide, and we've cut these up into bite-sized chunks and put them throughout this piece of content. You can also embed video in here as well, and these are linked directly and embedded from YouTube. So we get all the stats still, so the social media team aren't moaning at me for embedding videos or showing them off people's desktops, so we're still getting all the social statistics there as well. And there's all sorts of other tools in here. What I'll make sure is that Andy sends a link around to this so you guys can have a play around with it afterwards. And the final thing I wanted to show you, how am I doing for time? I'm running out probably. Was the analytics tool on the back end. So this is the analytics, live analytics off the back of that brochure, the procurement brochure I've just showed you. So we can see there's been a total of 478 readers. We've read it a total of 636 times. The average read time, bearing in mind it's a brochure, is 21 minutes and 7 seconds. Now, I don't know about anyone here, but I've never read a PDF for that amount of time without falling asleep or off my chair. We can see, you know, at both the picture level and the detail level exactly how long the users have spent on each page, and you'll see even on the last page here we're still getting a 98-second read time, you know, 16 pages deep. We can also see reach in terms of the number of views, in terms of where they've come from, and also what location they're in. And bearing in mind this was sent in the original Marketo email to exclusively a UK audience. So you can see already that these guys have shared it within their communities, they've shared it online, they've shared it within their businesses to a wider global audience. And then from an engagement point of view, these are the answers to the poll. So there's around a 10% response rate here, and we can just hover over these to see the results of the polls real time. Now what I can do now to my procurement marketing manager at Exchanging is go in and say that I know that insufficiently skilled resources is the biggest challenge, and their biggest area of spend is IT and telecom. So guess what our next campaign is going to be? We've got 1,000 people sitting on the bench ready to come and do procurement for you around IT and telecoms, and there's 20% off. So the stats that we're getting in this real time are starting to drive our marketing strategy moving forwards. And then just quickly, I'll show you some other tools in the back end. So we've got the ability to brand this thing however we want. We've got some social tools so we can make sure they'll link through to the right accounts. I can manage all of the users in here and give them either author access or admin access. And we're just rolling out sales access so the sales team can go in and actually just view the analytics and the documents and not be able to edit anything, which gives us full brand consistency. In terms of some quick results, which I'll share with you now, we have reduced our graphic design costs internally by taking this tool on by £130,000 a year. Reduced our print cost by £18,000 because we're not printing anything. We're just getting these documents on iPads at our exhibitions and the people can send it to themselves straight from the device. Improved click-through rates from 8 to 32%. Read time materials by more than 7 times. Social sharing by 600%. And leads from campaigns by 200%. And we've got an uplift in pipeline now of around £21 million based on what we did before we took this tool on. We've captured multiple new prospects, and then from a qualitative point of view, I've now got a team of 25 marketers. The UX on the back of this is so intuitive that if you can use an internet browser, you can design the documents that I've just shown you literally with no training. So I've got a team of 25 marketing people now who with zero training are in there creating documents for the sales force. It's moved marketing up the value chain because we're able to demonstrate properly the return on investment we're getting as this thing is linked to Salesforce and Marketo. So if anyone clicks through, registers as a lead, it gets tracked back through to that account and we're measuring the pipeline generated as a direct result of the back of the content that we're putting out there. Website traffic up by 19%, again as a response to referrals from the back of these documents. And the main one for me is the brand consistency piece. We had 2,000 sales guys before going out with local versions of PowerPoint saved on their desktops with no control over it from a marketing point of view, from a messaging or brand perspective. Now everything's locked down in this portal here, and we've got our 120 odd stories all in a searchable list of documents here, and there they all are. And that's it. Any questions?
Ian Halpin put his hand up first.
Hello. Hi there. Hi, Doug. Question to you. So one comment, one question. Comment would be B2B communications. I would say was a combination. So you talked about confidence. I would talk about authority, which is a combination of confidence and knowledge. So that would be my comment. And the question would be, everyone in this room probably wants to communicate powerfully on behalf of whoever they're working for. How do you acquire that confidence?
Okay, so part of that, I have a mic, right? So it's about how do you acquire the confidence? So how do you actually have it? And then it's a matter of how do you demonstrate it? How do you capture it into a piece of content? So having it, I guess, comes from really knowing your shit. So you ought to,
That was exactly what I would say, know your shit.
Right.
Would be the basic.
Totally. But what we find is that we find some incredibly knowledgeable and confident clients who do crappy content with none of that. They somewhere between the passion in the meeting room when we meet them and the stuff that hits their audiences, something happened. The confidence drained away from it. And one of those things might be committees, But really, and often it is committee, but also the confidence was never actually injected in the first place. In that ebook, we go through 5 or 6 things that we say, look, confident content looks like this, smells like this, doesn't try to say everything, tends to be shorter and to the point, tends to look you in the eye. There are some qualities of confidence. And that's because for us, confidence isn't really a flavor you sprinkle on after. It's very much a core message. And in fact, if it's the only message people take away, it's like, I forgot what the book said, but those guys were confident. You actually have moved on about that brand and you have great feelings about them. But I do think there's no substitute for knowing your shit. If you don't, you're outside your sweet spot and you can't do the confidence. So that feels...
Can I add something to that? I'd also say that it's our job to, that diagram I had of the 3 this Venn diagram, where the user is in the middle. It's our job to tell the client or our stakeholder, if we're within an agency, that's what you want to happen, but we need to focus on the user. And it's actually putting user needs first is a real education process, and it's not easy at all. But once your confidence grows, your second battle is making people believe what you're saying and educating them to allow you to do it.
We had a question that someone sent in when they registered actually. They said many B2B clients who are CMOs are loath to use content marketing automation tools like HubSpot and Eloqua because they think it makes their own role redundant. How do you encourage clients to adapt?
You are a B2B CMO, so you should probably start with that one.
Yeah, I think tools where you can curate content are really, really important. Otherwise you're then relying on a very small team within an organisation to do it. I've got 2 people in my social media team, and they're constantly looking for content, and we use tools like that. We're a Marketo user. We've signed up to HubSpot as well for some of their services. It's almost impossible to do it manually these days. So you need to use automation tools to be able to get the right level of content back into the organisation, not only for you to then repurpose, but also from an educational standpoint as well. I've learned most of the things in my career, certainly in the last 5 years, online. I don't go to university now to learn. It's all available online. I sit there on TechCrunch and Mashable and socialmediatoday.com and all these other sites because there's such a rich environment and rich amount of good content out there ready to explore.
One of the weird things, just to add to that, is marketing automation. In most of our examples, automation took a process that was manual and automated it. In marketing automation, actually, that's not true. These are new things. Lead nurturing and lead scoring, they weren't done before, really. So the automation is a bit of a misnomer. Early on when we brought it to clients, we were early believers. So John Watson, who was actually on the panel with you, was our client at the time, the first Marketo client in Europe, showed it to us, and it was like the road to Damascus, and we just couldn't wait to show all our clients. They were all going to buy it right away. This was, I don't know how many, it's probably 4 years ago or something, and no one did. Everyone kind of, as we were getting enthusiastic, leaned back. It's like, now they all have it, every single one. So, the reluctance that the questioner is signaling, I've not seen. I think in a way, it's the opposite, where people jump into it as the answer before they even know what they want to use it for.
Well, I've seen also within membership organisations, the CEO will want it to happen, but they will expect their team to tell them because they don't have the digital skills. There's a massive gap in digital skills right at the top, so they want the teams to tell them what they're supposed to be doing, buying, and then the budget cycles don't match them to enable to buy the stuff that they need to automate stuff. There's a whole problem around the chief financial officer and the way budgets are set up that respond in an agile way to the need of us as marketeers. It's really challenging from that perspective.
The other thing is, I don't underestimate the time required to properly put an automation platform in place. With integration with things like CRM, I've got someone full-time within my business that runs Marketo and Turtle. That's all that person does. And she could probably need a hand as well, if I'm honest. So it's time intensive.
Yeah, I speak loud enough, you know that, Andy. So I'd love to hear sort of from each of the speakers in terms of their top 3, in terms of content generation confidence. What brands do you think really are pioneering the way?
Well,
starting from the left, going right.
You can't say your own brands.
Yeah.
Can't say your own brand. But
No.
Virgin is pioneering the way.
Who do you personally admire?
Huh?
Personally, who are you looking after? Who do you admire? Who do you watch?
God, I'm gonna have a little thing.
Tuffy.
I've got a couple. So on the B2B world, there's an analytics company called SAS. SAS, who do a load of really cool online stuff and offline. There's a really good blend there. The one that's impressed me most in my kind of personal life from a B2C environment is a company called Bounty. Who, when your wife is pregnant or your girlfriend is pregnant, suddenly you get this hyper-personalised
I know what you're talking
9
about.
months worth of direct mail, online media, and it's just really cool. It's like, we know your child's 3 weeks away from being born. Here's some nappies, and it's like, really, and it's just really, really personalised, and they've gone to the nth degree on that. And I use that anecdote a lot because it's impressed me, and I guess that's what we're trying to achieve as marketers, right? Is to get people to talk about the stuff we're doing. So yeah, there's a couple from me.
What else you got, kids?
I have to say, government digital service, like if you don't read their blog, I really strongly suggest that you do. They've even got their service design manuals up there. They make everything transparent, from their code to their processes. They're pretty amazing just in what they share as well. So their manifestos to speak all the time. So if you can try and find them online, there's loads of YouTube videos where they talk about how they approach content.
Okay. Any more for anyone?
Government digital service.
They're the last place you'd expect to find it. If you gave me those 3 words and said they're doing something interesting, I would have not believed it, but they really, really are. They're led by quite an evangelist, a great, brilliant guy, and it's terrific. I mean, for me, in B2B, HubSpot is always good for their confidence, MailChimp for their voice. You know, in B2C, I don't know, there's so many great brands at it. I mean, I love Nike's attitude. I think they nail it. A lot of people say to me, yeah, but they're Nike, they can. That's not the point. The point is they got to be Nike by doing that attitude. That's what made them Nike. Yeah. So, and who else in B2B? Another unexpected one, GE, where they have a lot of fun with their content marketing. They do some wonderful things. The 6-second science fair on Vine was terrific. They do this thing on the aviation division, Paths of Flight, where these beautiful videos just show airplane after airplane after airplane superimposed on coming into a runway at night or something. Gorgeous, no narration, nothing. Just showing the beauty of flight paths and choreography and just standing back. There's someone who just loved what they do who did these. And so I'm often surprised by GE. Again, one of the places I would have thought would be last to please, but they're quite delightful, a lot of their stuff.
In terms of membership organisations, I'd say Girl Guiding are pretty amazing how they do campaigns. So they survey their teenage girls on what they want them to lobby on behalf. How close they are to their members is quite astonishing. But also the account, worth a mention, is the account, the Association of Accounting Technicians, which you would think would be completely dull, but actually I did a social media audit and they won on content because they had made it really sexy, funny, hilarious, and given their community the permission to be fun, which I thought was really good. And the Institution of Engineering and Technology, their YouTube content is hilarious. So they've spent a lot of money getting monkeys to create cars and drive them through zoos to show the process of evolution. I mean, it's really smart and funny.
2 more quick ones. WestJets, if anyone's not looked at WestJets. They did an amazing video that went viral around Christmas, I think the year before last. You remember it, Doug?
The gifts.
Yeah, the gifts one. It's just superb. And another one online is a favourite of mine is Paddy Power, the bookmakers. I don't know how many of the people in this room follow them on Twitter, but
Mischief Officer.
Chief Mischief Officer. That's his job, just to go around and cause havoc places, right? And some of their social media stuff's great.
We have a question at the back.
This one's mainly for Gareth. I think one of the upshots we can take from here, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but the answers to content shock are possibly either play the game, maximize the quantity of what you're doing because we need so much out there, and also obviously to improve the quality. We need to do both, and there always needs to be a balance between quantity and quality. Just to talk through the tactics of how you use the Turtle platform, if you've got potentially 640 pieces out of each topic that you find, what skills do you have in-house editorially and sort of quality-wise that are not just using the platform? Because clearly you can't just take something, split it into 40 pages and call it a slideshow.
So the reality is we'll never produce 640 out of that original piece, but the point is there's 640 options, you know, if we wanted to go down that route. In terms of editorial resource, I've got a global PR manager and 3 PR managers, 1 for each of the sectors that they serve. So we've got 4 PR specialists, all with editorial backgrounds. So they do the majority of the content for us from a writer perspective. We then engage with 3 or 4 different freelancers, again, looking for real niche industry experience. You know, we're big in the insurance market. You can't have anyone from outside the insurance market writing about the insurance market because they just don't get it. And then when we want to go off kilter slightly and get a bit more creative, we've used agencies in the past. One of which has done the majority of our high-level brand strategy and positioning. So, you know, the first sort of 150, 200 words you read about exchanging pretty much anywhere will be done by them. It's typically punchy, it's to the point, it's not B2B talk, it's there to grab people's attention, and it's that kind of corporate positioning piece. In fact, we've got a whole new load of stuff being rolled out in about 3 or 4 weeks, so don't look at it just yet, but look at it then. And then when you get down into the product detail, you're then relying on in-house specialists, the subject matter experts, if it's around a product and service, to then work with either a freelancer or one of the PR and journalism guys in-house.
And do you have a fairly shallow hierarchy so that things get approval when it's going up one level?
Absolutely. I mean, there's 2 levels within the marketing team. I report into the CEO, so there's 3 levels to the top, even from the people at the bottom of my marketing organisation. It's the only way to do it.
We have a question coming in from Twitter, I think, or on Twitter. Here we go.
We have a question from Gary Andrews. How do you strike the balance between data and creativity when planning content?
Who wants to go first? Emily?
So I think it comes back to finding who the user is, because I think very often you'll be furnished with some data going, oh, this stuff's working, create more of that. But you need to understand the whole holistic thing, like the conversion rates. Sometimes even data doesn't match up with what is actually happening. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that, but sometimes people go, this is great, we've got a massive spike, and like, yeah, but no one's buying anything. So it might not have targeted the right user. So when it comes to creativity, you've always got to put, again, your user at the heart of everything that you do.
I'd agree with that. I think I wrote a blog post a couple of months back that just said if as a marketer you don't understand data, you need to look for another career, and I genuinely believe that. I can't get passionate about data, it drives me around the bend, but it's absolutely vital to what it is we do. You can have the most creative and the best campaign in the world, but if you don't know who your audience is or how to get to them, then it's pointless. So, having data at the heart of everything we do is vital. And that's not just contact data, which I'm talking about now, but also, the stuff I showed you earlier in terms of what's working and what's not in our content, and which pages are driving greater engagement and which campaigns are giving us more leads. That then feeds back into the pot and makes everything stronger.
I do think the whole kind of the idea that data and creative are opposed and need reconciling, I think, is old-fashioned. Data is there for insight. Creative runs on insight. If you don't have the insight, you're skating around on nothing. So most great creatives I know really welcome the data as long as someone's helping them turn it into insight. If they think of it as a threat, somebody's doing something wrong, I think.
Next question. We had another one submitted, and why don't we use this as a nice way to wrap up, actually. Where is marketing headed? Does content marketing still have value?
Okay, I think it's the most important part of the mix, full stop. Except potentially data, which I mentioned a minute ago, which obviously you need to get to your audience. But out of all the things we do across marketing, the actual, the content is the bit that sits at the heart of all of it. It drives the strategy at an event. It drives, engagement with customers and prospects about whether they want to buy a product or service. It engages online communities. If you get your content strategy right and start putting really compelling pieces out there, and the spikes that Doug mentioned earlier, we've seen that. We've seen spikes back to our website as a result of putting a turtle thing out there. We've seen, spikes on, social media growth based on an outdoor guerrilla marketing campaign that we've done. And it's getting those pieces of content right and putting them out there to the right audiences that is absolutely vital. So yeah, I think it sits at the heart of everything.
I think personalisation and segmentation is really important. Actually, that's where B2B is ahead at the moment of B2C from what I can see. So B2C are now trying to be like membership organisations. They're trying to get close to the users, whereas membership organisations have started right from the beginning of knowing who they reach. So it's a really interesting switch at the moment.
I could imagine people thinking of it as a hype and a fad that'll have to pass, and surely another flavor of the month will come along, but can you imagine when it's not a good idea to package up your expertise and use it to help your target audience do their jobs? When will that be a bad idea? For me, this is definitely much more fundamental than a fad. There are faddish elements of it, and the people who do it just because it's the thing to do will fall away. The ones who do it right will see the result.
Can I just say one thing? There's nothing new about content. So we're talking about it now, but great advertising or any kind of communication for business has always had content behind it. So it's not like it's a fad that we're talking about it now.
Yeah, I think that is true. The first big backlash against content marketing was that it was nothing new, which of course is true. I think what's new about it is the new incarnation in a digital world, and that is new. There's a whole lot of new things that can be done, but I completely agree. I mean, content was generally at the heart. It's just such a dumb name, content marketing. I mean, imagine content-free marketing. What's that like?
I mean, I'd go even further, that content, you would have had to have bought it back in the old days, whereas now you can freely access it more than you could ever before. So it's the distribution and the accessibility that has really opened up and changed, and that's why we're getting deluged in crap, and why it's harder to get your message to the core audience, because you're just a little fish swimming amongst the crap.
I think the flip side of that as well is actually the way we all consume news now is very different. You know, I use Twitter as my personal news feed. I sign up to all the things I'm interested in, and that's what I get whenever I want it, any time of the day. And it's so important to get your customers, and in the agency people's terms, your customers, engage with their social channels and putting content out there that's relevant to them, so that they're then, consuming this information. And the other thing I think that's changed from yesteryear is the hyper-personalisation. And that's, again, a new buzzword, I think, hyper-personalisation. But again, you look at what I presented today, a very, very specific white paper to a CIO for an insurance business in a format like Turtle, cut to the shape and size that we know he likes because of how he's answered certain questions before in the past. Suddenly, you could never do that before, not in a million years. I used to stuff envelopes like you and just, wait for the postman to come in hopes we get some leads through, or the fax machine to go.
What's sad for B2B is you've been bitten by community and forums. So everyone's like, forums don't work, we've had that, it's tumbleweed, there is no community. But what you're seeing with kids today and those pop acts that I'm talking about, community really is where it's at. So they're creating their own kind of versions or responses or reactions to content, and that's become content. Their advocacy is huge. So if we can bring that into our world, that would be really interesting.
On that note, huge round of applause, please. Thank you very much. You shared a lot. It was really, really useful. I think if we take one action away from this, it's to reinvent the name content marketing to something that people will actually like, as opposed to saying it's been here and done. I hope you've enjoyed this evening.